Welcome to Lesson 5, which explains how to work with product risks and problems. If you've just completed Lesson 4, you should be looking at the all-purpose missile system. As demonstrated in Lesson 3, there are two ways to get into the risk editing window, either by browsing the risks and questions list and double-clicking a risk, or by double-clicking a product risk in the main display window. For now, we're going to use the second method. So let's double-click on B1.1.2.1, Fuel Components Mixing. Many of the items on this screen are similar to those described in the previous lesson. Since they typically work the same way, we're not going to spend time describing them again. Instead, we'll just point out and explain those items that are different or are unique to this display. Let's start with this gold-colored area right below the risk name. This is the longer description of the risk. As indicated by the color, you can edit this field, but you probably shouldn't once it's been initially entered. The ability to make changes here is only intended for correcting typos and errors in the original text. It is not meant for making major changes. If that's the case, then you should probably be entering a new risk. Right below the risk description is a new field called likelihood. We addressed this concept briefly in the previous lesson. However, unlike process risks, where this value is calculated, it must be explicitly set for product risks. The valid set of values ranges from 1 to 5. The likelihood could also have a value of unknown. This is the default value when a risk is first created. This calculates as if it were a 5 and basically indicates a value that hasn't been established yet. To the right is a blue circle with the letter I inside. You can click on this icon to bring up guidance for setting likelihood values on your program. In the upper right corner of the screen, you can see the same risk ranking indicator, except that a risk level appears next to the ranking instead of a compliance percentage. Risk levels are numbered from 1 to 25, with 1 being the highest risk or priority and 25 being the lowest. The risk level, or risk ranking for a product risk, is calculated very simply using the likelihood and impact values. These values are cross-referenced on the product risk matrix to determine the risk level. The specific values that should be low, medium, or high risk can be adjusted in baselining. Below the likelihood are the impact values, which work the same way as they do for process risks. Below that are the next action, due date, and action list summary, which work the same way as they do for questions. Here are the performer and managerial assignments, which are now all on the same screen. These are followed by the additional data fields and the general purpose notes field. Last, but not least, is a reference files field. Although this appears the same as the reference files field on the answer question screen, the purpose of this field is slightly different. When we were answering questions, we were required to have either a documentation reference or a reference file to answer the question. Here, the reference file field is completely optional and has no bearing on the risk whatsoever. It exists solely as a way to link documents that may be relevant to this risk or its mitigation plan. On the right side of the screen, we again see a weight field, which is only applicable if you are using the advanced roll-up weighting. Below that are the familiar navigation buttons. Again, don't forget about the online help. If you're not sure about something in TRIMS, you can always get more information by clicking on the Help button. Problems work almost exactly the same way as product risks. TRIMS separates them for two reasons. First, this helps program and risk managers to distinguish between those issues that are true risks and can therefore be mitigated, and problems, which are issues that are happening now and need to be fixed. Second, because of this difference in how they affect the program, problems use a different matrix for calculating their ranking. As we saw earlier, the default risk matrix looks like this. The default matrix for problems, however, looks like this. You can see that the lines dividing the high, medium, and low risk areas are slanted more vertically. This puts more emphasis on the impact of a problem than the likelihood of occurrence. Now that we've seen how to edit existing risks, let's see how to add new categories and risks. For this example, we'll start with a brand new element file. Before you can add risks to an element file, you must have at least one category. To create top-level categories, right-click on the Product Risks header and select Add New Category from the pop-up menu. Enter a name for the new category, then click OK. You can repeat these steps as needed. You can also create subcategories by right-clicking on any existing category and selecting Add New Category. You can use the same approach to create risks. Right-click on the category that will contain the new risk, then select Add New Product Risk. When adding a new risk, you must fill in the values with the white backgrounds. The gold-colored fields can be filled in at this time, but they don't have to be. When you're done, click the OK button and you'll see your new risk on the display. This concludes product risks and problems. Stay tuned for TRIMS reporting features.